There is a war raging, not one of bombs or bullets, but one of truth versus deception. What you see, what you believe, what you're allowed to know, all of it is being contested. Today, I invite you to step beyond the curtain, to confront the lies, the cover-ups, the silence. Because the most dangerous thing in this world is a truth nobody dares to speak. You have been fed stories, carefully curated, sanitized. You have been told what you must believe, and warned of consequences if you stray too far. But deep down you've felt it something is wrong. You smell the gap between what is said and what is done. You sense that someone, or something, doesn't want you looking too close. So let's look close. Let's shine a light on the shadows. Let's open the door that they built to stay hidden. They don't always silence the truth with brute force. More often than not, the most effective censorship is done quietly, invisibly, and with a chilling kind of subtlety. It's the story that never makes it to the headlines, the research paper that vanishes into a drawer, the inconvenient question that's left unanswered until people simply stop asking it. Hidden agendas are not about dramatic conspiracies in smoky rooms. They are about shaping the environment so skillfully that people never realize they are being guided. When truths are inconvenient to those in power, they are not always erased. They are drowned, buried under a flood of distractions, twisted into half-truths, or delayed until the moment passes and outrage fades. What makes this dangerous is how seamless it looks. The machinery of censorship has evolved into a system that rarely declares itself. Instead, it works by omission. If something never appears on your feed, if a piece of data is left out of the discussion, if a voice is deplatformed under the guise of safety or policy, the average person never even notices the absence. What is missing is often more important than what remains, but few stop to ask what they're not being shown. The agenda stays hidden precisely because it looks like normal life continuing, while truths are filtered out at the source. And who benefits? That's the question rarely posed loudly enough. Corporations protect profits by keeping damaging studies quiet. Governments control narratives by spinning selective facts and suppressing whistleblowers who threaten to expose inconvenient realities. Media organizations, despite claiming independence, bend under political or financial pressures, ensuring certain stories never see the light of day. The outcome is always the same. Information that could empower the public is kept under lock and key, while carefully managed narratives are broadcast, as if they were the full picture. This censorship is not just about what's said, but how it's said. A truth can be buried by surrounding it with noise. Release 50 conflicting explanations, and the audience won't know which to trust. Seed doubt, cast suspicion, blur the lines, and suddenly reality feels uncertain. People become hesitant to believe anything, and in that fog, those in control thrive. They don't need to stop the truth outright if they can just make it indistinguishable from lies. Confusion becomes the ultimate weapon. The most insidious part of hidden agendas is that they often come dressed as virtue. Censorship is justified as protecting public safety, maintaining harmony, or fighting misinformation. And sometimes those reasons sound convincing. But beneath the surface, it's about control over what people think, how they act, and what they question. When powerful institutions get to decide what counts as truth, society is no longer free. People begin to internalize the boundaries of acceptable thought without even realizing it, adjusting themselves to the invisible leash. Hidden agendas are not rare. They are the quiet architecture of our daily information. And unless we pause, question, and search for what's missing, we will never notice the truths that slipped away before we even knew they existed. Human beings are not wired to accept truth simply because it is placed in front of them. In fact, very often, the clearer the truth becomes, the harder it is to swallow. People cling to what they already believe because those beliefs are not just opinions. They are part of identity, culture, and survival. To accept a truth that contradicts those foundations feels like ripping away a piece of oneself. That is why belief is not just about facts. It is about belonging, comfort, and the deep need to feel secure in a world that often feels chaotic. Doubt, therefore, does not always emerge from evidence. More often, it is planted in the soil of fear and loyalty. When someone is confronted with information that undermines their worldview, the natural instinct is not to embrace it, but to resist. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort of holding two opposing ideas at the same time. Instead of resolving that discomfort by adjusting their worldview, most people simply reject the new information, no matter how compelling. The stronger the evidence, the stronger the rejection, because the mind is defending not logic, but identity. To admit the truth might mean admitting they were wrong, and for many, that is unbearable. The irony is that this very resistance makes societies easier to manipulate. Those who wish to control narratives understand perfectly how belief works. They know that people will often choose a comfortable lie over a painful truth. They know that repetition, emotion, and group approval can overpower rational analysis. Once you make a belief part of a person's community or tribe, challenging it becomes almost impossible. To reject the belief feels like rejecting the group, and no one wants to be cast out into isolation. The fear of exclusion keeps people in line, even when evidence is staring them in the face. Doubt, on the other hand, can be weaponized. If the truth cannot be fully hidden, then casting shadows over it is enough. A single seed of doubt can neutralize mountains of evidence. All it takes is one suggestion that things may not be as clear as they seem, and suddenly people hesitate. They hesitate not because they have strong counter-arguments, but because doubt is easier than confrontation. When a person doubts, they delay action, they suspend judgment, and they stay passive. That passivity is exactly what hidden powers rely upon. The tragedy is that many confuse doubt with wisdom. To be skeptical is healthy, but to be endlessly doubtful is paralyzing. When every fact can be questioned, nothing feels solid, and people end up retreating into whatever belief feels safest, regardless of truth. That is how entire populations can be kept under control, by keeping them trapped between the comfort of old beliefs and the fog of constant uncertainty. The psychology of belief and doubt shows us that truth alone is never enough. It must overcome the defenses of the human mind, the fears of social exile, and the temptation to hide from reality itself. Misinformation and disinformation are not new, but in today's world they have become powerful weapons. Sharpened by technology and multiplied by speed, misinformation is often unintentional false details spread by those who believe them to be true. Disinformation, however, is deliberate. It is crafted with precision, seeded with intent, and aimed at shaping opinion or behavior in a particular direction. The most effective campaigns blur the line between the two, allowing deliberate lies to be carried forward innocently by millions who think they are defending the truth. The power of disinformation lies in its ability to move faster than facts. A lie doesn't have to be credible to gain traction. It only has to be emotional. Outrage, fear, and shock spread more quickly than calm evidence. Social media algorithms are built to amplify what provokes the strongest reaction, and this creates the perfect breeding ground for manipulation. A false claim can circle the globe in minutes, while the correction limps behind days later, reaching only a fraction of the same audience. By the time facts catch up, the narrative has already taken root. The methods used are sophisticated. One strategy is selective framing: present a small slice of reality, stripped of its context, until it tells a completely different story. Another is the flood technique, overwhelming people with so many conflicting claims that the truth is drowned out in noise. There is also the tactic of false balance, giving lies the same platform as facts, making them appear equally legitimate. Each method exploits a weakness in human psychology, making the audience question not only the story itself, but their ability to discern what is real at all. Disinformation is often seeded through channels designed to appear trustworthy. Anonymous accounts posing as citizens, bots masquerading as grassroots movements, even carefully placed leaks in the media, all create the illusion that the narrative is organic. Once the initial spark is lit, the rest is done by ordinary people who share, repost, and argue over it. In this way, disinformation campaigns don't just spread lies, they recruit society itself as the messenger. That is what makes them so resilient. A government statement or corporate press release may be doubted, but a neighbor or friend repeating the same message feels personal, even convincing. What makes these mechanisms even more dangerous is how they exploit doubt rather than outright belief. A successful disinformation campaign doesn't always aim to convince people of one version of events. Sometimes the goal is simpler: to muddy the waters, to create just enough uncertainty that people stop caring about the truth altogether. If every side is accused of lying, if every story has a hidden agenda, then fatigue sets in. People retreat into cynicism, believing that truth no longer exists or is impossible to know. This surrender is the perfect outcome for those spreading disinformation, because a population that trusts nothing will also challenge nothing. In the end, misinformation and disinformation thrive, not because lies are stronger than truth, but because lies are crafted to fit human weakness, while truth often demands patience, nuance, and courage. Those who understand the mechanics of deception know that the battlefield is not facts themselves, but the minds of the people who must interpret them. Empowerment begins the moment a person decides not to accept the world as it is handed to them, but to question, investigate, and think for themselves. Clarity is not about knowing everything. It is about cutting through the noise to focus on what matters. In an age of overwhelming information, clarity becomes a shield. It is the ability to separate the essential from the irrelevant, the truth from the distraction. When you are clear about what you are looking at, manipulation loses much of its power. Those who wish to control narratives rely on confusion. If you cannot see the pattern, you cannot resist it. But once clarity comes, the hidden strings are suddenly visible. Evidence is the foundation upon which clarity stands. Opinions may shift, emotions may cloud judgment, but evidence, when examined carefully, offers something solid. It forces accountability because it cannot be easily dismissed without reason. Evidence is not just about statistics or documents. It is about demanding proof before accepting claims, whether they come from governments, corporations, or media outlets. In a society where evidence is respected, power is forced to justify itself. In a society where evidence is ignored, power does whatever it pleases. Empowerment requires citizens who do not settle for slogans or vague assurances, but who insist on seeing the facts behind the promises. Critical thinking is the bridge that connects clarity and evidence into meaningful action. It is the discipline of not simply asking what, but also why, and who benefits. It is recognizing that every narrative has a perspective, every statement has a purpose, and every omission may be intentional. Critical thinking refuses to be rushed. It does not accept the first explanation offered, especially if it is the most convenient. It questions sources, checks consistency, and looks beyond the headline to understand the full picture. Most importantly, it teaches humility, the ability to accept that one might be wrong and to adjust when stronger evidence emerges. Empowerment through these tools does not happen overnight. It requires practice, and at times it feels uncomfortable. Clarity often strips away comforting illusions. Evidence can challenge long-held beliefs. Critical thinking may isolate you from the crowd because you refuse to repeat easy narratives. But the reward is independence, the freedom of not being easily manipulated, the strength to resist when others surrender, and the courage to speak truth even when it is unpopular. Those who possess these qualities become far harder to control. They become obstacles to propaganda, thorns in the side of corruption, and examples for others to follow. A society empowered in this way cannot be easily silenced. It demands accountability from its leaders, fairness from its institutions, and honesty from its media. It does not collapse under the weight of lies because its citizens are resilient against manipulation. The truth, when combined with clarity, evidence, and critical thinking, becomes more than just knowledge. It becomes a force. It transforms ordinary individuals into guardians of freedom, ensuring that deception never goes unchallenged and that hidden agendas cannot thrive in the light of scrutiny. So here is the confrontation. They are counting on your silence. They depend on your apathy. They bank on your unwillingness to press harder, to dig deeper, to question your certainties. They want you watching distractions while the real show occurs behind your back. But you who are here listening, you won't be fooled. You will stare straight at the darkness. You will expose the loopholes. You will force answers from the muted, break down walls, drag suppressed truths into daylight. Because when truth is feared, it is powerful. When lies are unmasked, they collapse. And when you wield the light, there is nowhere left for deceit to hide. Tonight, I challenge every one of you, let the truth they don't want you to see be your rallying cry. Be relentless. Be skeptical. Be the voice that refuses to be silenced. And together, we will pull the veil and show the world what they hoped would never be seen. Thank you.